What's up YouTube, Crafting Cards, or happy Tuesday. Now, first things first, Gideon and I would like to thank you guys for helping our channel reach over 800 subscribers. That's pretty big for us because we're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber milestone, so yeah, we really appreciate it. And in today's video, it's gonna be formatted kind of like my last Tuesday's video, where I had a lot of content to go over, so I kind of did it in a voiceover style format and had some positive feedback, so we're gonna be doing it again today. Hope you enjoy. So I started off the week by bringing my brand new rims over to a local powder coat shop, Adrenaline Customs, to get them powder coated white. After I got back, I started getting my cylinder head ready for install, starting with removing my intake manifold. I then moved on to getting all of the dirty oil cleaned out of the cylinder head, and that's when things got, well, shitty. While I was in there going to town with my cans of brake clean, I noticed that one of my Skunk 2 lost motion assembly springs had snapped. Looking around online, it looks like this has happened to others as well. Needless to say, I will be replacing them all with the OEM version, as I just learned that Honda came out with an OEM spring-style B-Series lost motion assembly. So with that issue behind me, now it was time to try and remove my oil galley plugs to clean out all the internal oil passageways. I got my water filler neck removed to gain easy access to my first plug, which I very skillfully stripped out completely. Then I moved on to the biggest plug right around the corner, and before long I turned that hexagon into a circle as well. One passage that I was able to clean was the one leading into the VTEC solenoid. It became very apparent that these passages were going to be full of metal flakes based on what was caught in that VTEC screen. I continued trying to remove those plugs with every method I could think of, but over time, all I was doing was causing more damage. I even brought my cylinder head into work so I could use the welder and acetylene torch to help me out, but still wasn't getting anywhere. If you've ever had to remove a broken bolt, stud, or seized, stripped, or rounded out hardware, you know exactly how frustrating this can be. I just want to let you know that if you ever need anyone to talk to about it, feel free to share your experience in the comment section down below. Anyways, one last thing I did was drive to the engine builder that had last installed these plugs to see if he could help me out. And he basically let me know that he doesn't want to waste his time helping me fix it, so I just went back home. I eventually got 3 of the plugs out, and the way I did it was by drilling them out until there was barely anything left around the plugs, knocking the threads out, and eventually getting the extractor in there and extracting them, destroying the threads and the surrounding aluminum in the process. So at this point, I really had no choice. So I used all the cash money I had been saving for a street bike, and I went out and purchased a new cylinder head. I was lucky enough to find one fully built on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy who was selling it actually turned out to be the same person I had sold my old ACT clutch to. And since I had given him such a sweet deal at the time, he returned the favor, so that was a really cool coincidence. This new cylinder head is fresh from the machine shop with Ferrea valves, springs, retainers, and guides, and a beautiful port and polish job on the intake, exhaust ports, and the underside where the valves seal. So now that I had a brand new cylinder head, I was ready to get right to work installing it onto the block. First thing I did was remove the cam rails as well as the cam caps. Then I popped the dowel pins into the underside of the cylinder head. So now I was ready to move on to installing my ARP head studs. I do this with a small amount of ARP assembly lube on the bottom threads, making sure I don't have too much to go and squish underneath. Then I just get it as tight as I can with a little extension and a hex drive, once again keeping it as clean as possible. And now we install the head gasket. Pretty straightforward, just make sure you get it on the right way. now my roommate Jonathan and I install the cylinder head, making sure it sits hella flush on top of the block. So now we move on ahead to installing the ARP head stud washers, and I use a little retractable magnet for this. Seems to work out pretty well. Just get it centered on the stud there, push it down. Then of course we got to install our nuts, but don't forget to lube them up and wipe off the excess. I use my magnet tool to install the nuts as well. So now I run through the sequence torquing all the nuts down to 30 foot-pounds, but when I went to torque them down to 80 foot-pounds the next time around, we ran into a problem. The gosh darn torque wrench broke. Luckily, Gideon saved the day and lent me his snap-on digital torque wrench yet again. This thing is super nice to use. Not only does it vibrate, but it beeps, it's programmable, it's nice and long, so it makes torquing 80 foot-pounds really simple, and it'll even tell you if you over-torque the nuts, and yeah, it's just honestly a pleasure to use, and I'd get one if I was rich. Now with that out of the way, we can move on to my next Civic project, removing my front subframe. Tie my fuel pressure regulator out of the way, unhook my power steering delete kit, drain all the fluid out of that. Then I head inside the car, take the cover off the lower steering column, and then there's one 10mm bolt hiding in there that connects the little universal joint. You're going to want to get that out as well. Luckily, it's pretty easy to access. Alright, so now we can finally head underneath the car. I go ahead and remove all the bolts connecting the suspension to the subframe, and then go ahead and remove all the bolts connecting the subframe to the chassis of the car. And although getting crushed doesn't sound too bad right now, my roommate came through and helped out putting 2 jacks underneath the subframe so we could lower it safely to the ground. And I was pretty worn out by this point, so I figured this is probably a good stopping point for the video. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed the format again. Although we did run into some major issues, I'm glad that I got my B16 head installed and we got that front subframe pulled out of my Civic ready for upgrade. So hopefully this coming week goes a lot smoother than last week. So yeah, got some major parts coming. I want to get those cams installed and everything. Obviously you got to replace my lost motion assemblies, and as new parts come in, I'll kind of be able to build up kind of a new subframe. I'm not going to spoil what kind of subframe I got or kind of my current setup, but it's pretty exciting, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to Crafty Cars. Bye!